was your Japanese television experience?
They just had like a video camera from like the 80s, and I'm like, and like a boom mic. I thought of you. I thought of you.
It's my dream job, you know.
To be a boom guy?
To be a boom mic operator.
Yeah,
great.
John has great arms for a boom mic.
Actually, you do.
It was my Halloween costume one year. It was my best costume yet.
That's great.
Because everyone was like, "What? Hey, man, what are you filming?" When saying, shh, shh, shh.
That's great.
You're now listening to The Bradshaw Boys, a podcast where three relatively grown men binge the iconic HBO series Sex and the City. So dust off those DVDs and grab yourself a white wine or even a Cosmopolitan and settle in. Take it away, boys.
Welcome to the Bradshaw Boys. We are three guys watching our way through Sex and the City, mostly for the first time.
Wow.
And having a great time doing it.
Real good time.
Professional.
Was that professional?
That was.
Yeah.
I thought we'd have to do a couple takes on that.
No, that was take one.
You crushed it.
That was one take Cavin right there. Thank you. And I'm done. I'm taking off my headphones now. I'm leaving.
Get out of here.
And we got one take Jon Sieber over there.
How we doing, Jon Sieber?
And
One take. My nickname.
and I'm Kevin James Doyle.
And
Take
I'll say one thing
Yep.
that I didn't do on my first take. I didn't say my name.
Oh.
My name is Cory Cavin.
Mm-hmm.
That's take two.
And
Awesome.
this is our episode 6. We get to watch our 6th episode.
Secret
exciting.
Sex.
Secret Sex is the name of it. Don't talk about it. Keep it in the closet. Does anyone know what that's from?
I don't.
It's from a Michael Jackson song when he goes, "Keep it in the closet." it's a line in a Michael Jackson song. Keep it in the closet. Great song.
My
I think it's on Dangerous. I don't know.
This is going to be a while after Christmas happened, but when I was home, my sister told me she had all of the Sex and the City DVDs and she's going to donate them to the cause.
Wow.
That's
So
fantastic.
we don't need to steal HBO Go anymore. Passwords. We don't need to do any. We're self-sufficient. All we need is a DVD player.
So we found 2 episodes or 2 seasons on the street
Mhm.
Yep.
and 4 seasons on the street.
Yeah.
3 seasons on
3
the street.
seasons on the street.
And now we're getting the rest donated.
Yeah.
That's
so
fantastic.
We need someone to donate a TV and a DVD player so we
We
can
get
be
that.
fully operational, all off donations.
That'd be if we can get that. If we can get all those things, we can continue watching this. Right now we've just
to be
been
clear-
watching it through the windows of other people's apartments. We're like,
Can you
"Oh,
play this for us?
excuse me,
Sir, you need to leave. Okay, can my 2 friends stay
Hey,
and
okay.
FaceTime me in?
Get out." Okay, this is a home invasion.
This is also a very special episode
This
for
is a
us.
special
We have our
episode.
first ever guest.
That's true.
Very, very excited
We've
about
been
this guest.
5 episodes in.
Mhm.
We finally figured out our rough format. We did a one take of saying who we were, and then went back and said our names on a second take. And now we're ready to have a guest, and we're really excited about our guest because our guest is not only a friend of all three of ours, but also
A
Kevin,
colleague.
also a colleague.
She is a writer. She is a social media guru, and she is also a blogger without a blog.
I
Her
believe
name is
she's
Chinae Alexander.
Chinae Alexander, the
Chinae.
Black Sheep blogger. I really like that.
That's what I am.
Woo!
Hey guys, I have been sitting here this whole time trying to be very quiet so it could be like you introduced me from some door, but I've just been here.
You have been here, but welcome to the
And
podcast.
so
Thanks for
polite.
being our first guest.
This
Oh
is
my
exciting.
gosh, I feel so honored, and I feel a level of pressure I've never felt before being the first guest, but I suppose if anything,
You saw-
watching Sex and the City is something I'm very good at.
You saw Cory nail that tagline.
No, I was here. I
was.
was here for the tagline, and I can vouch for the one take.
Yeah, you can vouch for the one take and vouch that's pretty much the only thing we really nailed throughout the rest of those 3 to 4 minutes.
I thought it was great.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate it. But now we're back.
I think
with
it's
you.
easy for you to be a guest on here because we know nothing, and you're an expert on Sex and the City. You've
am.
seen them all.
I have seen every episode of Sex and the City, as well as all of the movies.
Okay.
Wow.
See, when we emailed you, we didn't know your relationship to the show. Even you could have been like us.
This could
We
have been.
thought you
this could have
seemed
been
like
weird.
you were probably a fan.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Did you watch them when they were live?
We could not really afford HBO. Thanks for bringing it up. So I was watching them on DVD or at people's houses. And I remember watching them at someone's house that had HBO. And this was in high school or early college and being like, it was like a transformative experience. And I was like, I had a fix and I had to get my next fix.
That's what I've heard people say, because a lot of people started watching it on like USA, I think, or something, and they were
Yeah.
edited down, and then you actually see
They weren't
the
as
show.
wild.
Yeah. Then you see the show as it is, and it's a totally different thing.
It's honestly transformative. And also, I think it was like one of the first shows that you like really truly learned how to binge watch when you got a hold of it. Like binge watching wasn't such a thing. And I think with Sex and the City, like it was a show that people actually had all of them on DVD.
Yeah.
And so it was pretty much background noise for the better part of my college years.
That's great. Wait, so you grew up in Texas.
Yes.
And you then moved to New York, but you started watching the show not in New York.
Yeah.
And you were saying this to us before a little bit, but it kind of like informed some of your New York experience. Or did it
Totally.
like give you expectations of what New York was going to be?
You know what's funny is when I was 8 years old, that's when I first moved. I was like, I'm moving to New York City. I think I saw Home Alone 2, and it was pretty much a done deal. Turns out that Home Alone 2 is not accurate except for the pigeon lady.
Yeah.
Like that part, super accurate. The rest of it, like not so much. And also Donald Trump in that movie. Weird,
Yeah.
weird,
Yeah.
weird.
Mentioned
Ugh.
in the first episode of Sex and the City.
Yeah, they mentioned Donald Trump in the first episode.
We
Mr.
can't get
Vegas.
rid of this guy. But anyway, this isn't that kind of podcast. This is a happy podcast about Sex in the City. So, yeah, I remember watching it in Texas and being like, wow, this is like a really different type of woman than I've ever seen on television. And it was not only one type of woman, it was like 4 types of women. And you were like, wait, all of these people exist in their 30s. And they're not like my parents were in their 30s. And in Texas, I didn't know any 30-year-olds that looked or behaved or dressed like them. And I was like, wow, this is kind of actually kind of a disruptive show, because it really showed me that women can be kind of all of these different things. And I just never kind of encountered that in like very conservative Texas. So it was really fun for me to like get to know the characters. And I think it actually probably was a huge kind of push factor of me moving to New York. I mean, as you watch the show, you'll realize that there are some slight discrepancies of what New York life is actually like. And I'm sure you've talked about this or will talk about it, but, you know, I think it, again, like Home Alone 2, perhaps wasn't exactly what New York's like.
Yeah.
Although, like in Sex and the City, there is their 5th friend that is the pigeon lady. And it's
Yes.
the same as Home Alone.
I
She's
wish the
always with
pigeon
them.
lady would have done a cameo in Sex and the City.
Listen, we haven't seen the whole show. Maybe she
We
does.
don't know yet.
She
Guys,
might. You've
guys,
seen it though,
Like,
so
will
maybe
you
that
let her
sounds
into
like
the
no.
club? No. She has to leave the
She has to
pigeons
leave the
outside.
club. She has too many pigeons on her.
What was the where you grew up by the time people were in their 30s? Were most of the women like married families, or what was?
Yeah. I mean, like married families, like the idea of like a Manolo Blahnik was like, they don't have that like at TJ Maxx. Like we're Maxinistas, you know, it's like, it was not a thing. And also the fact that the women like just spent money so flagrantly and just like stayed out late and had wild sex and had all these crazy dating stories. Like back then, like Tinder didn't exist. It wasn't like you were having all these, like people were talking about dating or having these wild experiences. And so I was like, this is what people do in New York, you know? And it was also like really interesting because I love that so much of the show was about dating, but it still didn't feel like hindering. It felt like still like empowering, and they owned their sex life. They owned their lives. And I was like, wow, this is not something I see on television that much. And not that the women around me didn't own their lives or weren't empowered or mobilized. They just, in Texas, a lot of people when they're 35, they have a family and 3 kids.
Yeah.
So it was really cool to see that. And I actually think I still like gained some sort of like inspiration from these characters. And I don't know that a show like this has existed since then.
Is there a character that you relate to?
You know what? I've been told I'm the Samantha, but without the like strange. Yeah, I mean, maybe I mean, I'm not going to talk about my like sex life on the show. Well, maybe I will. We don't know. We don't know what the next few minutes will hold. But but I think like a toned down version of Samantha. And because Carrie, you know, I want to like Carrie the best, but Carrie is annoying after a while. I hate to break it to you guys.
Why do you say that? Because I've heard that from other people and I haven't experienced it yet. So
She's your whiny friend.
Okay.
She's like your friend with like the hot furniture designer boyfriend, but like she's not thankful. And you're like, wait, what? But I like some. I just
So I think though that's great, and this is why I think we're very excited to have you on as a guest, but also like people that have seen the show and like a woman who lives in New York who is not just three dudes watching the show. When you were like, she's your friend who has a hot furniture designer, but's like not thankful for it. I was just like, I would have never thought of a thing like that.
And everyone listening is just like, yes.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's
you
it.
all have that friend with like the like really great boyfriend, and she's like, he's okay, and I'm like, like he built you a table. Be thankful.
I'm always the only way I could really relate to that is I'm like, oh yeah, that's that one girl's boyfriend, and he builds furniture, and I don't know.
He makes me feel bad about myself.
I don't know how to use a lathe.
We're on the other side. It's our friend. We're like, dude, she dumped you. You built her a table. Screw her, man.
Also, when are you going to put up my shelves, man? Come on. I don't know how to do that. I don't have a hammer drill.
Hey, dude, can you help me move?
Can I borrow your leveler? Your planer?
But yeah, I mean, Carrie's such an interesting character because she's really fabulous. She's a writer, which I love. You know, she kind of, she's the guide through the show. She's basically, she's your travel guide through kind of all the like issues and problems that these women are going through. And you like her, but you hate her. You're still friends with her. She's that friend that you're like, oh, okay, she's cool. But Samantha, I really love because she's just so out there. And I think for me, watching Samantha really made me not be afraid to be the woman who's a little bit bold. Mm-hmm. And I think she's a brave character in the sense that she's really unapologetic about who she is. Yeah. And she still has these loving, supportive friends who accept her the way she is, which I thought was like such a cool, it's not a bitchy, catty vibe on Sex and the City. Like they really do support each other and love each other. And I think, for them to be so accepting of a character like Samantha, that's just unapologetically herself, I think was really cool. Plus, she had good earrings. Like, guys, the earrings, you need to do just like an Instagram account of Samantha earrings as you watch this because they are really good.
I can't wait to
I
start
never
that
once
Instagram
noticed
account.
an earring
I didn't
on the
notice
show,
an
so I'm so
earring.
glad you're here.
Guess
I can't wait to
how
look at these
many
details.
Guess how many earrings you're going to notice now? All
A
of
lot.
the earrings.
So many earrings.
Quite a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It is.
We get wrapped up in the names more so than the earrings.
Yeah.
Like Capote
What do you
Duncan.
mean?
There's a guy named Capote Duncan in the first episode. That's not a real. I mean, if there was someone named Capote Duncan, he would be the boyfriend that's a furniture designer. But he's not in the show. He's a finance guy. But yeah, there's a lot of like weird names. There's a lot of. I think we get wrapped up more in some of the weird boyfriend characters, like the Timothy Oliphant guy.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
But there are like, I know you guys are like probably like not experiencing it out in the world, but as someone who's dated a lot in New York, those weird boyfriend characters exist. And like, I used to think that I'm like, oh my God, these are such a stretch. And now I'm like, these are pretty realistic.
So
Yeah.
funny.
No, I think you're able, probably more same with Ohio. I'm from Ohio. You're from Texas. Same way that there's a little bit range of different types of people you can date in different parts. You can kind of go a bigger range in any large city.
Right.
And here, even in the past 5 years of dating that I've done, it's like you can meet totally different types of people, even more so now with online dating.
Totally.
It
You're
kind
one
of
swipe away from like breaking up with a guy because you find out he has 3 cats. This happened.
What happened to you?
Yes.
And you're not okay
because
with
my face exploded with hives mid-date. Like this
Wait,
is a
are you-
Sex and the City thing that happens.
You allergic to cats?
Very.
Me too.
And he didn't tell
I
you
am too.
before?
John is too.
No, but he tried to hide it. He tried to hide it for 2 weeks and was getting his clothing dry cleaned.
What?
And taking a shower at the gym before he would meet me because I told him I was allergic to cats. And then finally, one day he wore a sweater that I think he didn't pick up from the dry cleaner. And my face blew up like, what's that movie with Will Smith where he eats that thing and his face blows up? Hitch.
Oh,
A great
great
film.
movie.
Film. Let's call it a film.
Great film.
It's a great film. But yeah, I was
Art
basically Hitch. And I was like, what's going on? And he was like, I have cats. And I'm like, we gotta end this.
It sounds like that guy really liked you, though.
He really did. I was
really,
like,
wanted to make it work.
He cried.
Oh my god!
And you know what? I ran into him outside the subway the other day, and I just kept walking.
Was he carrying a bunch of cats?
Yo, man, your girlfriend, you smoke? Nah, she's cool with it. You tell her about those cats? Fuck no.
No, man, come on. I love
No,
this
man.
girl. I'm not telling her about
like
the cats.
her. I
Come
gotta go
on.
to my dry cleaning.
I can't lose her.
Honestly, every woman in New York that actively dates has her her version of Sex in the City that just lives in her memory banks. So another, podcast idea, just women talking about their own Sex and the City experiences.
We're going to spin that off. We're gonna
guys,
Sex in the City.
can I host a spin-off podcast?
Yeah, it can be the Bradshaw stories with boys.
Well, I think
Bradshaw
we're
stories about boys?
with boys.
Ooh,
we're
with
gonna
boys.
Sexy.
get watching this episode in the next couple minutes here.
Yeah.
It is called Secret Sex. Have you
Secret
seen this
Sex.
episode?
I have, but I don't remember what
Okay.
happened. So it's kind of like I'm watching it for the first time.
Any ideas as to what it's going to be like?
Well, secret sex. They're either having sex in secret places. There may be some infidelity happening, maybe. Which, has there been infidelity yet?
There's been the guy who's showing off his wiener.
Oh,
in
yeah, there was the Hamptons guy
Yeah, the
in
Hamptons
episode 2.
I can't remember. At this part of the show, are they all single?
They're all single. Carrie,
No. Miranda's with.
Oh, no,
Scoots.
Miranda's with
Oh.
Skipper, and
Skips.
Carrie and Big have an on again, off again.
Right. Always.
And
But they've never even kissed yet.
Carrie and Big?
Yeah. So they're not on.
They don't have an on
again.
again,
They've
off
just
again.
They
They're
just
doing
say
a lot of- they're doing a lot of-
absolutely to each other.
They're doing a lot of
lot.
hardcore flirting and saying abso-fucking-lutely to each other. Yeah, that's true. So they're not on
Which is
again, off
basically
again.
like sleeping with each other.
She's just from 20 feet away saying, "Oh, I can see your crossword because I have perfect vision." Things like that.
It's also worth noting that Chinae brought us something. You want to share?
This is very
What did you
kind.
bring us?
So, as your first guest on the podcast, and as a very, 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 very big fan of Sex and the City, I know that one thing is necessary to watch this show,
And that is?
and it is wearing a face mask.
Oh man.
And I really feel sad that you guys have watched 5 episodes without face masks. You might need to rewatch them with face masks on just to like verify your experience.
I'm into
But
that.
I would say probably 90% of my Sex and the City time has been doing some sort of skin treatment. So I brought you each a face mask, and I think you
gosh.
should wear
Excited.
them as we watch it.
We absolutely
100%.
will.
We'll take pictures.
We're totally into that. Yeah.
I feel really happy about this.
There are 3 different brands. Is there a better or worse
Differences?
one? Do we
Yeah,
choose?
run us through what you have.
You
and
know
then we'll
what?
pick.
It's kind of like the characters in Sex and the City. They all do different things. They all serve different needs. And so I'm going to analyze your skin before we watch it.
I'll take the
Fantastic.
Samantha, please.
Give me
That's a
Miranda.
different kind of mask.
I think on that note, let's go watch the episode.
We'll be back.
Episode 6 Secret Sex. Carrie and Mr. Big have their first official date, but she suspects he is keeping her secret from his social circle. Miranda dates a man from her gym class, but is perturbed to discover a spanking video in his apartment. Later, the gals gather to celebrate the launch of Carrie's new promotional photo, but are shocked to find it has been defaced. And now, back to the boys.
And we're back.
Everyone, we're back.
Secret sex.
Wow.
First of all, before we get into the episode,
Yeah.
how do you guys' faces feel?
Fantastic.
Stellar.
My forehead feels very moisturized.
Tell people why your forehead feels moisturized and not the rest of your face.
Well, I not only do I have a big beard, but we wanted Jeremy, our producer, we wanted him to have some face mask too. So we cut my face mask in half. I used the forehead portion, and Jeremy used the remaining portion. So
Jeremy said you looked like the ultimate warrior because you just had like a head thing on.
How
that's
do your
all
how
I've
do your
ever
cheeks
wanted
feel?
to. My cheeks?
Yeah.
They feel really dry and
Crusty.
weathered and awful. My
You
forehead.
and Jeremy are one whole person.
That's right.
That's true. It's beautiful.
Mine is great. I don't know if you're supposed to, but I took the rest of the goo from the face mask and I rubbed it in my
yeah.
beard to get down to the skin.
Wow.
So
Everyone's
feel
looking
great.
very glowy,
Yeah.
I will say.
Yeah. My face felt hot before and now it feels cool. I had a tea tree one, I think.
I basically just wanted to be the best guest ever. I didn't know I was going to be the first and only so far, but I want to continue to be the best. So,
You're starting high.
Yeah.
That's for
Set the bar
sure.
and we're
very
looking
high.
for a mask sponsor.
We
for
are.
the show.
Listen, mask sponsors, if you're out there listening, and I know you are, get on, do what Chinae did. Be the first The first something. She was the first guest to Set the Bar High. Be the first sponsor and set the bar high. Send a crate of masks over.
One time I, on Instagram, posted a joke photo, me holding a Chipotle bag, and I said, does Chipotle give out sponsorships? And 6 months later, Chipotle came knocking.
Damn.
And they said,
Hey.
we'd like to give you a year of Chipotle, which you figure out
What?
later that you don't need to eat Chipotle every day for a year because you want to be a person with a body that functions. But that did happen. So
Wow.
sky is the limit.
That's
That's
amazing.
great.
Can you talk about whether was there something attached to that? Like you just have to post about it. It's like once a
Yeah,
week
they
or
well
something?
we did like one Instagram post, but then they just gave me, I just wanted to do an Instagram post for them, but they just gave me a stack of free Chipotle cards
That's
to
great.
use at my will.
That's great. One time I got sort of sponsored. I got 15 free iced coffees or something from a place called Gorilla Coffee, and it was given to me by Jon Sieber.
Hey.
John sponsored me.
Wow.
He gave me all his free coffees. That was the sponsorship that I got. It was from my friend, John.
Yeah, those coffee programs they don't work well with me because I always try to save them up and have like 100 in a row
Mm-hmm.
because I want to have free coffee month or free coffee 3 months. But then I moved away from Gorilla, so I had no use for the 15
You really
crew.
know how to squeeze the joy out of an opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely.
really
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's good.
all right, so
let's-
John, tell us what
Let's
happened.
get the secret sex. Took some notes here. A lot of things happened in this episode. The question I think that Carrie was asking, and correct me if I'm wrong, is are there people in your life that you compartmentalize and just use portions of? And in this case, it was sex. Are there people that you're that the women are having sex with that they're embarrassed about or they're ashamed of, but that part of their relationship is great, so they kept doing it? And is that something to be ashamed of? Is that something that's fine?
Mhm.
And that was the question. Carrie, was having girl talk. She was going on her first date with Mr. Big. She wore the dress from her photo shoot. A little bit of a risque dress.
The naked dress.
The naked dress.
Iconic naked dress.
Boobs on toast, I believe.
Yes.
Was that what?
Tits on toast.
Tits
I
on
think
toast.
is
on
what
toast. Wow.
Miranda said.
She goes out with Mr. Big. They go on their first date. I don't even think they made it to their date. They made it to the car and ended with them on the floor and him with some arm pain. And they go to the get some Chinese food afterwards, and they run into her friend Mike Singer, I believe.
Yeah.
And he's on a date with another woman, and Carrie goes and says hi to him, and he doesn't introduce his date Libby, and that's kind of starts Carrie thinking about that, about the compartmentalization of people not introducing someone. Maybe they're embarrassed. You have Carrie and Miranda in Central Park. What were they talking about here?
Oh, I
What-
think they're talking about the guy that Miranda's dating. I
The
think.
kickboxer.
Kickboxer guy.
Mhm.
And sex on the first date with
Sex
Mr.
on the
Big.
first
Sex
date
on
with
the
Mr.
first date with
Big.
Mr.
Was that a
Big.
mistake? Was it not a mistake?
That's right. Then we go to Bed Bath & Beyond, where Carrie and Mike are talking, and you have an illustration of Mike meeting this Libby girl and why he didn't introduce her. And then Samantha and Carrie are hanging up the photo shoot photo, which leads to a very iconic moment in Sex and the City. She is going to be on the side of the M2 bus. Anyone
Yes.
take the M2 bus?
Fifth Avenue, right?
Fifth Avenue.
I try not to take buses.
But
I take buses in Brooklyn, sometimes in Manhattan, very rarely.
I only take them when I can drive them, which is twice a week.
But Carrie and Samantha talk about secret sex, and they talk about Charlotte, who had a relationship with not a rabbi, but a Hasidic named
Hasidic.
Shmuel.
Shmuel,
And
who we found out is in the show True Detective, the actor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who probably lives on my street, to be honest.
There you go.
they all go out to the bus stop. Mr. Big's not there, so Carrie. Prior to that, Carrie and Mr. Big are on a Saturday date. They run into a friend of his, and he doesn't introduce her, just like Mike didn't introduce Libby. So they also are planning on going to the reveal of Carrie's picture. Mr. Big doesn't show up to that either. So after many bottles or glasses of champagne, she confronts Mr. Big and says, "Is this real? Are we really doing this?" And he has an explanation for everything, every reason why he didn't introduce her, for taking her to the same Chinese restaurant a couple times in a row. And they decide that it could be a real relationship.
Yeah.
How was that summary?
That was great.
Was it good?
Great.
Great. I
That
feel
was-
like I didn't need to watch the episode.
That was everything that happened in the episode. That was
so if you
very
guys
thorough.
haven't seen the episode, don't bother.
Don't bother. Just keep listening.
The last one we did, I was like, that's so impressive. The last time we did it, they're like, Kevin, do the summary. And we had just watched it. I was like, I don't remember what happened.
We were like, well, there
Miranda.
was Miranda. Is her name? What's the red-haired's name?
Yeah.
What was it?
So, John, you nailed that.
John's our
Thanks,
recapper.
guys.
I will
Thanks.
say one of the things that stood out to me is how relatable it is that once you're like totally normal, and then the second you realize you like someone, then all of a sudden you go into like paranoia.
Mm.
Yeah,
That
you
you're
become
like,
a crazy person.
Oh my gosh! Like, and then you try to be chill and try to be like, it's fine, and then you just read into everything. So I thought that part was pretty relatable in my dating experience. You know?
Yeah. I need to know, Chinae, should she have worn that dress?
Yeah, first date. There's been some back and forth.
Mm-hmm. Is that
You
that
know,
what you have gone with?
I think she wanted to feel her best. And I think, in the show, it kind of plays off that he's older, he has more money, perhaps, he has some sort of status, and Carrie's always trying to kind of, throughout the show, play up kind of a status through clothing and through things like that. I mean, it's completely unrealistic that she lives in the West Village and she is a writer for The Observer with a column. And she has like $1,200 shoes. But I do think the awesome part of the show and how it kind of intersects with feminism is it kind of tells you can do whatever you want to. And so I think Carrie was like, it's kind of her moment of like, I earned this free from my job, but it's going to look like I'm on the same playing field as you. And so I think her way of leveling the playing field is being fabulous and kind of being like out there with her sexuality. And maybe she just wanted to have sex in the first date, but she wasn't willing to admit that.
What do you think about, going along with what you said, because I noticed this, what do you think about when she showed up and he just goes, interesting dress?
Interesting dress.
And then he says it twice, and you can tell she's just like, wait, what? Because it's the worst thing. I think that's one of the worst things you can say to a woman is you're like, that haircut's interesting. That just conveys so much confusion, and then you have to backpedal because you just said something stupid. And it was a weird moment between them.
The show really what I really love about it, this show really plays into like all of our insecurities. And it's amazing because most women that would be watching this show and men, but like we would kind of filter back to a time when we thought we looked a certain way or we felt a certain way, and then something kind of comes and like throws you completely off, and you're like, what? Wait, no. And then, but it kind of always gives Big the upper hand. And then now he controls the situation. So I think probably as humans, we do that to each other. I think like not texting back. They didn't have like cell phones back then. So like maybe like not texting back is the equivalent of like giving like an offhanded compliment, So it's like, it like kind of shows like, I'm not that into you. And that's kind of Big's character. I don't want to blow it, but that's kind of Big's character throughout the show is like, you're always wondering, like, is he that into Carrie?
Well, I do think it is funny that it's like all the stuff in her head, which is like, I'm just going to wear the dress. It's not a big deal. I'm just going to, and then she gets there and it's kind of exactly, if she was unfiltered, it's exactly what she thought, which is what Samantha says. It's like, wear it. And if you want to fuck him, then fuck him.
Right.
And that's exactly what happened. So I feel like she was being maybe less honest with herself. And then once it was there, she's like, cool, I did exactly what I wanted to do. Consequences being now I'm in my head about it.
Do you think she got in her head that her head was too heavy because it was hurting his arm?
That's the most relatable part to you.
She's like, damn, I got a heavy head.
A lot of
I was
hair.
like, gosh. Yeah, what I mean, great to have sex on the floor for the first time, but I mean, think about your comfort, man. After you're done, lie in the bed.
Yeah.
That's a good point. But
This is another unrealistic thing. Like those hardwood floors, they are way too dirty in New York to be laying on them. Like,
that's a good
they have,
point.
like,
I mean, honestly,
They
whose
have
floors
90 years of just filth in those
Yeah,
cracks.
I'm like, this is pre-war. Like, this is a pre-war apartment. No one's having sex on the floor. You're not putting your white sheets on the floor. There's gonna be dust bunnies all over those things. It's not comfortable. There's probably a roach. It's just like another way Sex and the City is a little unrelatable.
Yeah, come on, Darren.
Christmas
Darren.
last year, my gift was a Dyson, And
Wow.
I'll tell you what. First of all,
You love
I got him.
Wait, was this the gift that you received or the one that you gave to all your friends?
both.
Every guest on on our podcast now gets a Dyson.
Gets a Dyson.
It was refurbished, so it was $250 over $500. So it's like half off, but it works perfectly. But all those corners, like the radiators that we have. I don't know if you guys have a radiator, like how there's dust in between the radiator. All that stuff, every corner, there's no dust. So
if you're
my
listening,
floors are ready for it.
Dyson,
Wow.
if you're listening, we want a sponsorship. We want face masks and we want vacuum.
You know how much?
And
You know
also-
how I know how much Kevin loves his Dyson is that's the second time he's told me that exact thing.
It's made my apartment way cleaner.
Is that you dropping hints to any women listening?
Listen, if
it
someone-
wasn't, but it is now.
Casual.
It certainly is.
If you want to come get rowdy on the floor, it's clean.
You can even have sex in the radiator.
not
You know,
not in the
they're-
winter. Those things are 5,000 degrees.
Listen,
He
if you're
likes
into
it.
pain,
It's a weird thing.
So I do think it's funny. Right before we were talking about how beautiful Carrie looks in the intro of the show, and then this whole episode was about that dress that she wears on the side of the bus, and yeah, I just thought that was funny. Dude, should we talk about the iconic moment?
yeah, let's talk about the
Iconic
iconic
moment.
moment. They're waiting at the bus stop. Carrie did her whole dress shoot, and now
First of all, it was great because Chinae was like, "Oh, this moment's iconic," and
I
we like
know.
all leaned up. We're like, "Oh, what's it gonna be?"
I was
Yeah,
so-
this is like the moment
Yeah.
of the show. And every woman, if you say like the naked dress,
They know.
They know.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
funny.
I mean, not all women in the world. I'm not
Yeah,
going to
yeah, but all the-
categorize all women in the world, but all women that have like really seen the show. If you say the naked dress, they know what you mean.
Is
We're
there,
gonna-
is there an equivalent item of clothing that men can be naked? Is there like a naked trousers?
the, the naked trousers.
Oh, there's Corey wearing his naked trousers.
got
He's
the
hoping to
naked-
get laid.
He's got the naked trousers on.
Well, whenever I just walk around in only my girdle, people say that.
I mean, you guys just like being naked.
That's
I will say when she's in the Chinese restaurant and then you only saw the front of the dress, then you see the back, you're like, that is some dress.
Quite the dress.
Yeah.
the dress.
What
Okay,
about
so
what about Samantha earrings? Did you notice any good Samantha
You know
earrings
what?
this episode?
Here's the thing I've noticed, and I had forgotten this fact, is that as the show progresses, the earrings grow with the seasons.
Ooh.
Because in this episode,
They get better or
but
bigger?
you know what's funny is in this beginning season, I totally forgot because they actually I don't know if the show didn't have budget or what was going on, but really the only like person that was really like highlighted with their fashion is Carrie.
Mm-hmm.
The fashion of the show is like not at a high level at this point, but as the show progresses, they all get increasingly more fabulous in their own ways. Like Miranda's power suits are like extra power
Extra
suity,
powerful.
and like Samantha's clothes are extra bright, and the accessories. Carrie's clothes kind of stay the same but kind of get more extra. And Charlotte in this episode, she looks very plain, but she gets more and more waspy as the show progresses. It's kind of
I
like
can't
all
wait
of
for
their
that.
characters kind of like amplify out, and the style of the show, I think they finally hit like a stride with them. But for now, it's kind of like interesting because you see them, and really the only person that's really like fabulous is Carrie. And that dress is also called a naked dress because you can't wear any underwear underneath it.
she definitely doesn't have
Oh.
on a bra with
No
it.
bra, and it's so low cut in the back that you couldn't wear any sort of underwear.
So you are naked
you are
in the naked dress.
You look naked and you are naked.
Oh my goodness.
I gotta
Ooh,
get
what
me,
a dress.
Gotta get me a naked dress.
Guys,
So I have a question about something that I noticed in this show. So they used when Carrie was out at the Chinese restaurant, she ran into Mike and Libby, and Mike was the guy who was
Mike Singer.
at the restaurant with the girl that he was embarrassed about, didn't introduce her to Carrie. And then the next day they met up at Bed Bath & Beyond, and they did probably like a good 5-6 minutes of just Mike explaining his relationship with Libby. And I thought that was really interesting that character, Mike, who's just, have we met him yet in this series?
no.
No.
I
don't
think he
think
was
so.
just in this episode got like maybe 20% of the episode all to himself to illustrate a point when they could have used Samantha or Miranda or who's the other ones?
Charlotte.
Charlotte. They used a random guy to illustrate that point, and I was wondering why they would use a random character that we've never met before to illustrate this point that people may have these secret lives or they're doing something and they're embarrassed about. Like, why didn't they use another character? Why do they specifically use a random strange guy that we've never met before?
Well, I would throw this out that they may have already kind of not dealt with that. Like Skipper is kind of that for Miranda. That's like, I like this guy, but he's kind of a doofus looking. It definitely changes the dynamic that the second you see her, you're like, this girl's cute, but she's definitely been cast. Like they dress her up pretty homely on the date at Mr. Fung's. Is that what it is?
Fung Wah.
Fung Wah.
Which is actually a bus
The bus,
line
yeah,
It is the bus line.
that caught on
and-
fire.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
So immediately when he's nervous, there's all of a sudden there's something that's like, okay, why are you embarrassed? And this girl, she smiles in kind of a funky way. She's a little awkward. So
But then when you see her in the cheese shop,
She's
she's
way
way more charming. She's cute.
and way prettier.
and she's way prettier, and she's kind of funny and
Yeah,
stuff.
that's
And
what
so
I know-
it plays that whole thing up.
Yeah, and that's when he first met her. That I wonder if that's like in his mind too. Because when he's talking about his mind, I wonder if it's like in my memory, she was so sexy the first time with like the cheese stuff and all that stuff. But then I don't know if that in her mind, if that's actually how it happened or if that's how he's replaying it. Like, oh, she's so much prettier. In my
Yeah.
head, I wish I was more attracted to her.
I think they used a guy to kind of tell that part of the storyline because, I think women can get really insular, even within their own social groups of talking about like, well, is it this way? Is it this way? We kind of all are taking from our own experiences and our own fears and our own things. And what was so interesting and I think kind of poignant about using a guy and not, spoiler alert, but Mike Singer, not a character that is a recurring character.
Oh, that's
in this
interesting
show.
because I was wondering.
So,
Yeah.
sorry.
No, it's
But
cool.
sorry to break your heart if you're a big Mike Singer fan.
Oh,
But anyway, the thing I think is important about why they used him particularly from a male voice is it confirms the things women fear.
Mm.
And it says something that you feel inherently and that you worry about is actually true in the real world. And I think it kind of is this hard thing because it's an interesting juxtaposition because he is the guy that confirms the fear, but then kind of propels her into her psychosis about the relationship and then confronts Big at the very end. And he has a completely different view. So it is like, kind of to me, it's like, all men don't behave this way. All men don't think this way. But I thought it was important that it was from a male perspective because it is sometimes true that women in their gut feel a certain way. And, you can talk with your girlfriends about it till like the cows come home. But sometimes it takes the guy friend to be like, oh yeah, he just didn't like you. And you're like, holy shit, he didn't like
Are you
me.
serious?
Yeah, like you've been through this, so I think that's why the show made that choice. I mean, I may be looking into it because
No, I think that makes sense.
yeah, just kind of like punctuates like the things that you think and you ruminate about with your girlfriends, like guys are thinking them too.
that's true though because he's basically a foil to Big, and you don't know. Like
Yeah.
at the end when Big went through all that stuff, I expected him to just be like, yeah, I'm kind of
Right.
wishy-washy. But then he actually had a reason for those things, and then he was like, is this who you are?
Right.
So yeah, that's a really good
Yeah,
point.
I just thought it was interesting that this like random character Mike Singer got 6-7 minutes of screen time, and they really dove back into that storyline where Charlotte and Shmuel was like a 30-second,
Yeah.
45-second
Right.
thing,
Yeah.
and it was essentially saying the same thing that we keep these people secret because
right.
we're either embarrassed of them or she said it was Daddy's little Episcopal with the God's chosen person. It just would never work. So
I do think it's interesting about the Mike Singer story is that it ends with him being like, man, this girl's perfect. I'm just like not quite like embarrassed in front of her or something. And then it ends with him being, I don't know how he feels about it now. And maybe we'll never know because Mike Singer is
Guys.
not. But at the end, she breaks up with him and she moves on.
Yeah.
So I would love to know. That's just interesting. It's like he's waiting around so self-involved. Like, I don't know if I'm attracted. And then she's like, yeah, I'm going to move on. You're clearly not what I want.
Yeah.
So he ends up getting broken up with in the end.
Yeah.
Poor Mike.
Mike Singer.
Is it because
Rest
he
in
wasn't
peace.
attracted to her? Is that why?
No, because she felt his like
The-
trepidation about the relationship. She's like, I'm not having this.
Yeah.
Which I think is like amazing because he clearly thought he had the upper hand in that situation.
Yes.
And I think this is another like little through line of like feminist cool like moments in the show of the woman just being like, and she was a very mild character. You know, I don't even think she had more than 3 lines, but her kind of like saying, no, I'm not going to like deal with this shit. And I think that's like kind of an amazing thing about this show is you see the neuroses of women, but you also see these kind of choices that they make, whether that be to choose to have sex in the first date because you feel like you can and you should, but then also, you know, swinging back to the worry of that, but then also like breaking up with a guy who doesn't treat you right, you know, and it kind of all being focused on Mike, but in the end, Libby kind of from the sidelines, she wins.
She's like, listen, I got free cheese samples for other cute guys.
She's like, you think you're the only one eating the goat cheese? I don't think so, bubs.
Yeah.
Wait, we didn't really talk. Did we talk about the actual big moment? We led up to it.
I thought you were going to say, did we actually talk about the different cheeses that she was
talked
giving out?
the
Because
cheeses. There was a Canberra.
We're
going to
do a spin-off cheese podcast, which I will be hosting.
Section the Charcuterie.
Before we do that moment,
podcast.
Chinae, you worked in publicity in a previous life, correct?
Yes, I did. I used to be a marketing director, PR director for a furniture company. And this is like an interesting tie into the Sex and the City podcast. And I did reveal this to the boys before I got here, or right as I was getting here to tape. But basically my boss at the time, who was a furniture designer at the time that Sex and the City was kind of coming out, he was, you know, living in New York. And there's a character that comes later in the show. For those of you who are familiar, Aiden, and he's a furniture designer. And there was all these rumors when I first started at the company that my boss was the loose inspiration for Aiden, which was kind of crazy. But the kind of the thing that made me believe it more was that our furniture appeared in the show a lot. And then our furniture and my boss appeared in the episode that Carrie and Aiden actually meet at a furniture fair.
What?
Yeah. And I actually brokered a deal to outfit in the Sex and the City movie. They go furniture shopping. And I actually kind of facilitated a bunch of the furniture and things. And I totally tried to get into the filming under the guise of protecting the furniture. Apparently, furniture is fine without a guard.
They don't need a handler.
They do not need a celebrity handler
So
for the
funny.
furniture, so they didn't let me on set. But I can say that the desk that actually I slated for the show was touched by Carrie. So,
wow.
guys, claims to fame.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So in the show, Samantha says when Carrie is hanging up the poster of herself, she says that there's no such thing as bad publicity. Is that actually true in that world, or is that just a saying that we're all fed, like a lie that we're all fed?
I mean, I don't know. I think things are different now because things live on the internet forever now. I think back then, you know, this wasn't like pre-internet, but it was like pre the internet being a crazy
The internet
place.
was certainly boring back
I
then.
mean, the internet was a very mild version of internet.
Yeah.
You know, like Carrie would have been like memeified in like 2 minutes. You know, it's like it's also funny how technology intersects with the show because, you know, it's all about calling.
Oh, yeah.
And like leaving messages on an answering machine rather than like texting or online dating. Like I kind of wish there was like an updated Sex in the City that, you know, brought in the kind of craziness of like Tinder or like texting. But you know what's funny is the through line of the show is they're still worried about the communication. Even when you were just waiting on a voicemail, you're just as worried about a text message. It's just the anxiety is amplified because you know they're touching their phone every 30 seconds. And like, why aren't they texting you back? Because they posted on Instagram.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the publicity angle would have been different if we were in modern times with more like internet society. I think back then probably that was true, you know, because it probably meant like magazines, newspapers, and television. You know, it wasn't like your face was on Reddit.
Right. So the reason I asked that question is because getting to the big moment, what was that you want to talk about, Corey? You want to talk about what the big moment was?
the
And I
big
want to know,
moment-
was that bad publicity?
The iconic moment.
The
The iconic
iconic.
moment. So they're at the bus stop. They all have champagne glasses and party hats, like a New Year's Eve toast kind of thing.
Yep.
Big doesn't show up. Mike Singer does show up, and that's when we find out that his relationship has ended. and then they're waiting for a bus to come by. The first bus that comes by has a Bed Bath & Beyond ad. It's
Which
not
is
hers.
funny, tie into Bed Bath & Beyond
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
Part of how HBO makes their money.
I would be willing to say that my mom still has coupons from Bed Bath & Beyond that were attached to the advertisement on that bus.
Probably
I
so.
would bet.
They don't expire.
I would bet.
don't expire.
Kevin's Dyson that actually
Refurbished.
She
Refurbished Dyson. So yeah, that goes, and then another bus comes, and finally hers shows up,
Yes.
and there's a dick drawn right by her face on the bus, and they all tell her it's okay, and she freaks out and hides her face. She can't believe it. Which I'll say, outside of this show, to me, that remains one of the funniest things in New York all the time.
Yeah.
You can poster defacing is an art that just keeps going, and it's the best.
I'll say this, that big ups to the guy who did draw the dick, because listen, a lot of those minor league dick drawers, you go for the subway. On a bus, it's a little harder and a little riskier to draw a dick on that poster. So that person went to great lengths to make that happen. And I would challenge all of us to see if we can find a dick drawn on a bus, because I don't think it happens that often.
That's true.
It certainly does on
a speedy artist.
a speedy artist.
Yes.
And I'll say we got to go around and check out the M2. Maybe the M2 is known for that,
Maybe the M2.
because it's pretty slow.
Yeah.
There's like a guy. Can I? This is going to sound like a humble brag, but it really relates to this episode because in last year I had a photo that was for an ad campaign for a brand that I work with that was plastered all over billboards, and so it was a lot of billboards in the world.
Can we say what it is?
Yeah,
Is this the one that was at Broadway Lafayette?
Yes.
So you were on an Adidas,
Chipotle.
You were on
So-
you were at Chipotle.
I was wrapped in a burrito on a Chipotle ad. Big deal. No, I was on an Adidas ad. I'm a brand ambassador for Adidas. And what was so crazy is it wasn't just big billboards and things like that. It was on bus stops, and it was on buses and the sides of buildings and things like that were lower to the ground. And I actually... the moment that because my Instagram followers started sending me pictures from around the world, like in Dubai and Mexico City and all this stuff. And in Mexico City, I was on a bus stop, my face, and I was, the thing is, as soon as I saw that photo, I thought of this episode.
That's so
Oh,
funny.
man.
And I went back and I was like, holy shit. Someone is going to draw a dick on my face. I feel so honored. In all the ones that people sent me screenshots of, I did not see anything drawn on my face, but I really feel like if it was in a more accessible location to draw on in New York City, they certainly would have done it because we have no respect.
I do feel like when those posters go up, it's like a first snow in New York that you're like, all right, see it while you can, because next week they're going to be brown
dick-faced.
snow and dicks everywhere. That's awesome. Was it surreal seeing that around, or did people notice you?
Yeah, no, I all the time people will send me photos. They're like, is this you? And I'm like, yep, that is me on a bus stop. It's totally weird. But I think, I kind of wish someone would have gotten a little more creative with the work. So I'm going to keep my eyes peeled for that.
Did
next
people
time.
ever notice you in person around New York of being like,
You know what? You know what was really embarrassing? The first time I was ever taking a photo of my billboard, someone saw me taking a photo of my own billboard, and they were like, "Is that you?" I'm like, "Yeah." And I was alone, and I was like, "It's fine. I gotta go."
That feels like a Sex in the City moment.
It feels
They would
like
walk up
one,
to Carrie doing
and
that.
it was one. And then you're just like, "Wow, I feel like such a tool."
Leave it to a New York stranger to ruin that moment.
Yeah.
Anywhere else, it would be really exciting.
Someone would be like, "Oh my
Pumped up.
gosh,
Oh my goodness,
that is
that's so cool."
No,
New Yorkers
is
like,
that you?
what a loser.
remember?
Interesting.
Remember a few weeks ago when LeBron James was on the subway and he was doing a selfie, and the guy next to him on the subway, and he's like, "It's my first time on the subway,"
Oh my
and
God.
a guy next to him
He goes, "I'm here with my teammates and this guy," and he turned it and filmed that guy.
and the guy was like, "Don't film me!"
The guy
Put his hand up, or
put his
whatever.
hand in the camera. It's great.
This is kind of why I love New York.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, but that goes back to your question. Was that bad publicity? Which I will say one thing, was that the only bus she was on? Because as soon as it happened, Samantha was like, "Nobody looks at a bus ad. It's fine," which is kind of like an undercut.
Well, yeah, it's the thing they're so excited
Like,
for.
don't worry about it. No one even looks at bus ads.
But I love that earlier in the episode, Carrie and Samantha are talking about the bus ad, and she kind of is like, she puts all of she's like, Samantha's really good at like putting all my worries at ease. She always knows what to say.
Mm-hmm.
And what's funny is she's talking up the bus ad so much, and then later in the episode she's like, no one looks at a bus, and I'm like, Samantha does always know what to say. She's your friend that's just like, fuck them.
That's awesome.
It's true. She is like good PR.
She is. She's great. She's such a shark.
So I'd love to shift focus here and talk a little bit about the Miranda storyline.
Absolutely.
Miranda and Ted. We haven't really delved into Miranda finding the spanking videos in Ted's underwear drawer.
First of all, he should have known this would happen, but naughty Miranda. Bad
move from Miranda.
Bad
there,
for
right?
snooping. He should have spanked her. She should not have snooped.
But
I was
honestly,
very mad.
But honestly, though, that was so another unrealistic thing. Like, I've dated a lot of people in New York, and I've never been left alone in their apartment on a first date.
Totally.
Also, where does he live? Because his apartment's
It was
huge.
huge.
Also,
overlooking the Natural History Museum.
That's
guys.
true. Yeah.
and how does she lock the door?
Also, if you're overlooking the Natural History Museum, does that mean you live in the park? If you think about the geography of that, he lives in that castle in the middle of Central Park, Belvedere Castle.
He lives on Tavern on the Green.
Yeah. I guess he could live like on the street across from it, like 81st or whatever.
Yeah,
Or whatever.
I mean,
that is.
it was.
don't know
I
what
mean,
that is.
it was a ridiculous. I mean, first of all, why would you ever let a stranger sleep in your apartment? I mean, you should let them sleep in your apartment, but like stay there while you're gone.
Yeah, when you leave on a flight.
And then I was confused because he was like, do you want to hang out tonight? I'm like, is she hanging at your apartment all day? Like, what's the deal? And then just to catch you guys up, if you haven't seen it, she rifles through his drawers because.
And his Rolodex.
She's a snoop.
And yeah, she's a little bit of a snoop, but I mean, I only look at people's medicine cabinets when I go to their houses. But she goes the deep dive, and she does find a couple VHS tapes that are spanking videos. But then my question is, she takes it to Carrie's apartment to watch it,
steals
and
it.
I'm like, wait, how are you going to get it back in there? Are you going to give it to him later? He's going to notice the spanking video. What if it goes well? I just had so many
And
questions.
Did he give you
it-
keys?
Wouldn't it
Yeah.
have been easier to just film that scene with Carrie there, being like, you need to come here now, and then they
Yeah.
watch it? I did yeah. Also, maybe he was so embarrassed by it when she calls him on it. She's like, you need a spanking when they're after their second good date.
Mm-hmm.
It's like total shutdown. It's actually a great comedic moment. It's pretty hilarious when she goes for it in her head of just being like, I'm just gonna go for it, and
Yeah,
then
and then
he's like,
That was like his thing that he didn't want to open up about.
or
He wasn't ready.
Yeah.
did he just have it there to be like, this is how I'll catch Snoops?
Mm,
Maybe it's that it's
Snoop
like, I'm going to
trap.
leave you there, and then you're in the Snoop trap, and she got bit. I don't know. I liked that little side thing.
It was a good
was
little.
fun.
There were a couple really good little side stories
Yeah,
on this
Shmuel.
episode.
Shmuel was a quick
Shmuel.
one.
So the guy that
Forbidden
played
Love with
Shmuel, the guy that played Shmuel is now like kind of at the peak of his career right now. He's done a bunch of really, really good stuff, and then he was the villain at the end of True Detective season 1.
Did his career start with Shmuel?
I don't know. We'd have to look at his IMDb. I'll look it up, but he's done like 3 or 4 awesome roles in the past few years, and he must just know the people at HBO pretty well. He must be a go-to guy, and probably because that first role as Shmuel, they were just like,
He's
He had,
So
he
believable.
had Jabangles,
We gotta-
and they were like, "Yes."
is
we
it? That's
see
what they're
it.
really called, right?
That's the technical name. I live in Bed-Stuy. I can
It's
tell
the
you this.
technical name, and also it's like,
It's
is that
not.
an insult too?
No.
It's not.
No,
It is.
no, it's not. I don't know if it's an insult. It's not an insult to me. They just look like they would make a noise.
Is this the real name for them?
No, they're
No.
Pays or Pays.
Okay.
I think.
We should
Okay.
probably look that up before we put this in the podcast.
when Kevin said when she said that she was dating this like folk artist from Williamsburg who was Jewish, I looked at Kevin and I was like, Modest Yahoo? She's
Yeah.
dating the
that would have been an
musician
interesting
Modest Yahoo?
side.
I have a friend who toured with a musician, and they would play these giant festivals, and he got really into Modest Yahoo for a little while, and then they played this festival and Modest Yahoo was there, and my friend had just been to Israel, and he was like super into all this just Jewish history, and he went up to Modest Yahoo at the festival, and he was like, hey man, I just want to say it's amazing to meet you here. I've been looking at a lot of stuff for Israel, a lot of Jewish history, and I just got to say, man, you're a huge inspiration. And he said, Modest Yahoo just turned to him and goes, that's cool, man, I'm from Brooklyn. And then he just left, and then he went on stage.
what happened to him?
I think he released an album like a year or two ago.
Cool.
He's still
I'll
out there.
check it
I
out.
think we should, and he might be friends with Shmuel. I don't know.
Maybe this is like
might be friends.
maybe
with
this
the
could
Sex
be
and the City
outro
ladies.
music. I don't know.
It could be.
I'm throwing it around.
Wow.
No,
So wait, this is his very first role ever was A Price Above Rubies, and then right after that, his
Shmuel.
second role ever in 1998 was Sex in the City.
How do you spell Shmuel? Is it SCHMULE?
It is
What'd they do with that?
SCSHMUEL.
Oh, Shmuel.
There was a guy that used to come to our open mic, Corey, that was named Shmuel.
Shmuel. That's true.
And his job was his full-time job was singing at what's their church service
Old
called?
folks home. I thought.
No,
he-
it
like
was
Temple?
at Temple, but there was a name for it. He's
This is now turned into the podcast of people that don't know anything about
Judaism.
Judaism. We know nothing about Judaism.
He's in Bored to Death. He's been in every every HBO show now. He's their go-to guy. Boardwalk Empire, True Detective.
Well, listen, we should get him on the show. The Shmuelcast.
His name is Glenn Fleshler.
I
Glenn?
feel like he might be available.
I mean, if we can get him on, that'd be awesome.
You know what I thought was interesting is other than Carrie's kind of story, all the other women had like kind of these side stories, and they focus so much more on Mike and his storyline. And I think it was because like this is not as common for women. I don't think it's as common for women to kind of like secret stash their relationships.
Mm.
And I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you think that that's the case? Do you feel like you've had women that you've dated that you felt like I feel like women are always a little bit more open to like you meeting the friends and being involved and kind of being out in front because we kind of, I don't know. I feel like that you often don't see like a really like smoking hot dude with like an average looking girl. It's usually the opposite. And I wonder, I'm like, is this just more prevalent for kind of like guys to not even to hide women, but just not to be as open with their relationships sooner?
I know for me, it's definitely a step. It's a step when it's like, all right,
Meeting the friends?
bring you around the friends. I know certain guys that aren't like that at all and are just like first date, just like, yeah, we're doing this, and that to me, that like makes me a little nervous. doing it too early.
What date number would you have to go on to make a girl meet your friends?
And this is a complete stranger. Like they
Complete
don't know.
stranger. You met her on Bumble.
Oh man.
5.
Date 5, you would be like, hey, after drinks, let's meet up with some friends.
Yeah.
I was
Charlotte said on date 5 is when you can have sex, and instead of sex on date 5, I'm like, we should hang out with my friends.
Yeah, we should go
Because that's
see
as
Call Me by
fun
Your
as
Name.
sex for
Yeah.
me. But I would say date 5.
Yeah, I think that's probably right.
Date 5?
I was gonna say 3, but now that I think date 3, you could meet like a few friends, but like a big party thing,
Like going to a birthday party.
going to like a birthday party, definitely like date 5 or 6. Yeah,
And that you have to know that like that person's going to be okay there. That's like that. I would have to know whether it's like, cool, if I go there, they need to be able to like
Hang.
hang.
Yeah.
Cause that's a big, that's
yeah.
a big, as an extroverted person,
Mm-hmm.
like I've done that before and then sort of been like, I don't know.
You know
not
what-
vibed well with the person when they're just like, you just like left me there. I'm like, I had to go to the bathroom.
You know what the worst thing is whenever someone is like really cool with you and like they're like extroverted and they're like normal and then they get around other people and they're totally weird
Yeah.
and you're like, who are you?
Mm.
So I think it's kind of like, it's one of those things like I actually strangely don't, I like wait till like 10 maybe. I'm like way down there, which is kind of opposite of what I said before of how I think women are, but I'm just like not, I'm kind of like atypical in that way. I think because I value my friends so much, I'm like, I don't want you to have to deal with like a loser.
Well, you were talking earlier about dating in what it was in Texas versus here.
Right.
And I feel like part of dating and being single and not having kids like until you're much older, your friends become more of your family. In Texas, when you're 34, it'd be coming over to your family's house.
Right.
And here it's like coming
Your
over
friends
to
are the family.
Yeah.
yeah.
that's true.
So it is, I guess it makes sense that it's a big deal here because it's like, oh, this is the people these are the people I trust the most. These are the people I spend the most time with. And their opinion of me and of you is going to be a pretty big deciding factor.
And I will say, it is always weird when you're on a first date or a second date and you're with someone and you run into someone they know. It's
Oh, yeah.
always weird. Like, that's never like a cool, fun transition. Like, it's just weird. So I kind of was like, this feels like a little bit of a stretch in the show when they were like, they ran into some of Big's friends and it was weird. And I was like, I've had that happen. I've run into like people I'm very good friends with that I'm totally comfortable with. And it's still sometimes like awkward.
Yeah.
It's like you forget how to talk to your own friends.
Yeah, I was wondering. I was like, if he would have introduced her, would he have said? And I think he probably just been like, "And this is Carrie," but he wouldn't have said like my girlfriend or this is someone I am dating. Like he would have just probably been, "This is Carrie," and that's it.
I mean, I have had a guy introduce me, and we had been dating for a bit. We weren't exclusive, but he had introduced me to one of his friends as his friend, and I'm like, "What?
Excuse me?
This is my friend.
Well, now we are. Now we're friends."
It's a new status.
So if men typically are a little bit more secretive about maybe their relationships or guarded about that, what are the things that women do you think are guarded about? What are the things that they're going to be hiding from men, at least in the beginning?
I mean, I think in the beginning of the show,
Their spanking videos.
Yeah, it's mostly our spanking videos.
Miranda brought that over. Yeah, put that in there.
That
was her way of telling Carrie that she's in the spanking videos.
Wow, this would be a really twisty episode. No, I think women more hide the emotional things of what they really want.
Mm-hmm.
So I think sometimes women don't say what they really want because they're afraid to be judged for it. Or, if they express their emotions, it took Carrie being completely wasted to say what she really thought. And at the end, it was like this moment of is he going to freak out? And so I think with women, a lot of the things that we maybe hold back are less of the kind of outer facing things, but more of the internal facing things. And so at the beginning of the show, I loved they were all kind of sitting around talking about sex and their views on at what date or what time, they would have sex. And Carrie she was flip-flopping back and forth the entire time because she couldn't kind of even decide for herself, even though secretly she knew she was going to have sex with him.
Right.
So I think it's sometimes hard for people in general, but women in particular to kind of say what they really want to say for fear that because the world, is harder on women, I think, about things that are stigmatized like sex or relationships or, a lot of women would never say I talk to my girlfriends about this all the time of you don't want to ask what are we? Because it's you don't want to be seen as clingy or you don't want to be seen as a crazy girl or committing too fast. And really 99% of the time women are just no, I'm literally just trying to get clarification so I can live my fucking life.
Yeah.
It's not about oh my God, I'm literally crying at night because we're planning our wedding already. It's not really that, but somehow, the world has convinced, whoever that might be what's going on. So I think in that show, it kind of, you really do see the back end of women talking to each other. I don't know if that teaches men things.
I think now too, it's easier now to have a secret relationship than ever before because now you can meet someone online, go on a date, and don't have to meet through other people. So it'd be, I think now more than ever, it's kind of important. You could meet a stranger, you have no idea their expectations. If they just want sex, if they want a date for 3 months before they go to Shanghai for their new business, so I think that's
very specific. Has that happened to you?
Did you?
So
is there anything you want to talk about?
I gotta tell you how I got that Dyson.
But I think now it's kind of people are learning more than ever that expectations are all over the map, and it's just smarter before you get too emotionally involved to be what is this? So I can put it in the correct box so that I just don't feel horrible or you in 3 months.
Right. Right.
I've had a lot of girls that have just been on date 2, just be I just got out of a relationship, and because I feel a lot of people, that's where the first place they go. It's okay, I need to meet someone, Bumble or Tinder or something like that. But it's been nice to be you're the first person I've dated because I'm just getting back. And it's all right, maybe we'll hit it off. Also, I understand if 2 months from now, it's I was a rebound. It's better to know that right off the bat than a few times got burned that way, in Shanghai. I got Shanghaied.
You got Shanghai.
So what is everyone's Cosmo rating? We go around the circle. We do 1 to 5 Cosmos and how much we like that episode. 1 being not you didn't like it at all, and 5 was the greatest thing you've ever seen.
Now, as your first guest, I have a question about this. Is this relating to the previous episodes, or does this episode stand alone?
It's a good question.
It's a good question.
I haven't been writing my down, unfortunately. I wish I have been. I certainly know that.
Good thing we're recording this.
Exactly. We could just go back and listen. And you should too, listener. No, I think that it's a standalone. I mean, here's the thing. We've done it as a standalone as we talked about it, but we have been like, I gotta say, the past couple episodes, Carrie did this, this, and this. I don't really like this episode. So it's kind of just it's relative to the entire show.
Whatever you want the Cosmos
There you go.
rating
That's
to be.
it. Just it's whatever you want. And you've seen the whole show, so you kind of know how this would stack up against things or
Yeah,
it's
I'm gonna
good
try.
nostalgia.
I'm gonna try to like delete as much of that as possible and just judge the episode.
You don't have to go first either. We could go
Great.
and you could weigh in if you want to do that.
Yeah. Kevin, why don't you go first?
I'm going to give this episode 4 Cosmos.
4 Cosmos.
Ooh.
I'm going to give it 4 because I like how it developed Carrie and Big's relationship, and they finally went on their date, and they finally did more than just flirt. And I liked the ending when she finally like got emotional and was like, "Here's where I'm at." I thought that was a great scene. I like the side thing with Joe the plumber. What was his name?
Mike Singer.
Mike Singer.
Joe the plumber.
But I really liked that scene, and I actually loved that actress that played his girlfriend. I thought she was great.
Mhm.
But I didn't learn enough about Charlotte or Samantha in this, and that bummed me out. I wish I could have spent a little more time with them. So I'll give it 4 Cosmos. I thought it was awesome.
4 Cosmos.
Mm.
If Star Wars is defined by Jedi battling Sith with lightsabers, Sex and the City for me is about the 4 ladies sitting around a table chatting things up. And there was not a lot of that in this episode. 2.5 Cosmos.
Wow.
Before I do my rating, one thing that I did write down is they did do, when she came out with a naked dress, they did do a table scene, which they did in the first episode. In the first episode, they were sitting around with takeout. This episode, they're sitting around that little coffee table. They got champagne.
And Levain cookies.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
I think they were, or they were some sort of.
Some
They
sort of
were.
like New
They
York
were
bakery
a
cookie.
New York cookie. Like
Yeah.
that was a New York cookie if I ever saw one.
There was one, but you're right. After that, it did sort of divert into a lot of different storylines, and we have the whole Mike Singer story. I think for me, this episode, the content, maybe it's just our great discussion here, but the story content and like some of the social commentary content was pretty strong with this whole like relational stuff. It was almost like it wasn't super heavy, but it did take a little bit of the fun out of it, and maybe that's because it was devoid of some Samantha, which is always fun, and one of my faves. I'm glad that we got to see a little bit more of Miranda, and I like to see the like liberated Miranda moment, and then she just crash and burns. But I think I'm going to go with 3.5 Cosmos on this one. I thought it was really good. I thought it was like pretty deep in that, but I wasn't like flying high and having fun. So I'll say 3.5 Cosmos.
Here's the thing. I'm going 4.5 Cosmos. And
Here we
is
go.
why.
I'm
Here is
excited.
why. This episode has some major moments. First date, Carrie Big. This is a through line till the freaking end. You know, this is like the introduction of a like Mike Singer, who cares? Like Big being there and them having their kind of first moment, huge deal. Second, the fact that like how many over a million years it's been since this episode aired, I can still remember the naked dress, and every time I put on a nude colored dress, I think of this episode.
Or when you're on a
Iconic.
billboard, you think
Or
of this
when
episode.
also when I'm on a billboard, humble brag. No, but it has so many moments that are so punctuated. The bus driving by, the fact that I haven't seen this episode in probably a decade, and I can still know that whenever they show up in party hats at a bus stop, I know exactly what's coming. And it's just these moments of Sex and the City that you really like, that really define the show. The reason I'm taking away 0.5 points. 0.5 points only.
0.5 Cosmos.
They hadn't quite figured out the styling in the episodes yet, which I know you guys don't care about probably, but you know, like the looks like weren't as tidied as I like. But also the transitions of the shots were very similar. The camera work was very similar to a PowerPoint.
Yeah, there was one with a race car, I think.
Yeah, they were really trying some new things out with the transitions. That they were getting like a little artistic with it, but it wasn't as consistent. So they do eventually figure that out.
There's the little stick guy in the corner the entire time.
Yeah, like the little paper clip.
Yeah.
Like, hey, turn the page.
Clippy, the assistant.
Clippy, yeah. So yeah, I think it was like a very iconic episode if I can speak from seeing the whole show. And it kind of had these defining moments, but also, you know, they're finding their footing, but it's kind of really cool to see those early episodes when you know so much of where the characters are going. But that even in those first episodes, they're these like really raw, authentic little characters, and they're so different. And I think the thing I like the most about this show, but also in this episode, is that all the girls are so different. Yeah. And you're like, how did you become friends? Like, that is the question I eternally ask, is like, how did you become friends? Because they're all so different in the show. Especially in these earlier episodes, like they just paint them in such different lights, and they have such different opinions. And I think it's so, if I can get a little like emotional about like women, because I love women and women friendship so much, is like, I love that they are so diversely different. Their tastes are different, everything about them, but they find these common threads that all women have. And I think it's a really kind of unifying, special thing that you don't see in television that much. You know, often you see women that do the same things or work together or have the same interests. And, you know, it's just, you see Charlotte at a gallery, you see Miranda kickboxing, you see, you know, Carrie at home writing, you see Samantha just being her badass self. But like, they all exist in this world of womanhood. And I think it's like so magical. And so this episode started to like kind of develop that. And you even see in the first scene, they're all dressed differently. One's wearing sweats. Samantha's wearing like a jumpsuit. Carrie's in her naked dress and Charlotte's wearing a cardigan. And you're like, how are these people friends? And then you're like, I know exactly why they're friends. Because like the insatiable thing that women have with each other is like this deep need for like friendship, connection, and communication about the things that matter. So I think that episode was a really great like little push into that direction. So
that was amazing.
That was
really, that was incredible.
I feel like I'm like, man, I missed a lot. That was such a great wrap up. This is really
great having a female perspective.
Guys,
it's amazing.
Well, I just like it is the ultimate girl power show. It's like the Spice Girls of TV.
That's true.
Without you here, we would have specifically like only talked about Mike Singer and his cheese tastes. I'm pretty convinced.
You know what I want? I really, really want to watch another episode.
Oh my gosh.
As a Spice Girls reference.
Oh wow.
Gosh.
It's not good enough for you guys to get it. Well, thanks so much for being here, Chinae. This was
awesome.
so
Chinae, this was
awesome.
So great. And also, tell us where we could find you more besides billboards.
Besides my many billboards globally, I promise I'm not terrible. You can find me first and foremost on Instagram at Chinae Alexander. And then you can also find me on Twitter, probably talking about politics. You can find me on YouTube talking about makeup and relationships and doing all sorts of things. And soon enough, I'm going to have my own podcast. So you can find me CrossPod. Guys, what do you think?
I love it. Be amazing.
Guys, we're gonna do CrossPod Nation, and I'm excited.
That's Chinae Alexander, CHINAE.
Alexander, the normal way. That's always been spelled that way.
Well, this is awesome. I'm so excited for the next one, and I don't know. We'll see you guys next time.
We'll see you next time. Thanks for being our first guest.
Yes,
I can't wait for you to come back for another episode.
I would love to.
The Bradshaw Boys stars Cory Cavin, Jon Sieber, and Kevin James Doyle. The show is produced by Jeremy L. Balon. For more information on the guys, check out their website at bradshawboys.com, on social media at The Bradshaw Boys. And if you see them in the street, tip your glass. Thanks for listening.